well, earlier in the week at least, a government apology in response to the Royal Commission of Inquiry on child abuse in state and faith-based care. The Royal Commission came out earlier in the year and, well, as a part of the recommendations, the apology was given in Parliament this week. Somebody who we have spoken to on the program before. She is herself a survivor of abuse in faith-based care. Frances Tagaloa joins me now. Kia ora, talofa. Thanks for your time today.
Talofa and kia ora to you too. Thanks, Andrew, for allowing me to be on here and continuing to keep this issue and matter before the public. Really appreciate it.
It is such an important issue, and for the people that were watching the apology in Parliament, the Prime Minister and other representatives of the government, a variety of responses to it. You were in Wellington, you were at Parliament when the apology was given. What did you make of it, Frances?
It was definitely a very emotional time for all of us survivors, and to be honest, it was really hard to accept the apology when I haven't yet received redress.
Yeah.
And there's nothing been set up for me to be able to seek that redress independently from having to go to the church. So, many survivors are still similar in no better position with redress than we were before the apology. So the apology does seem a bit hollow in that respect.
There was also talk of a day of remembrance, and again, mixed response to this. Some people say, "Oh, well, this is great. This is significant. This is something we need to not forget." Others are saying, "Hey, actually, I'd rather move on from this rather than be constantly reminded." But of course, for many survivors, they can't forget.
Yeah, that's right. We can't forget. The abuse is going to be etched into our minds and in our lives for the rest of our life. So having a Remembrance Day for me is significant. I think we should. It's a part of our history now, our tragic history. But nevertheless, I think, as a nation, we have to acknowledge it. We have to remember it to ensure that it never happens again.
Yeah, no, certainly. In terms of restitution, there's ongoing discussion, and there were, well, perhaps light on detail in what was announced at Parliament earlier in the week. And it may be until early next year before we have more specific evidence on this. This is coming, but not yet. Some are saying this has happened in the wrong order. Yes, it may take time to work out the details, but surely they should have got that sorted first so that it could have been announced at the same time as the apology. What's your thoughts, Frances?
Yes, I would have thought so too. And I think that's why, to me, the apology seems so hollow, because if they had a system already set up and there were people already able to get an redress through an independent redress system, then the apology would come at a better time where survivors are like, yes, I'm now navigating my trauma through redress, but they're not able to because nothing's set up. So I agree with that. Yeah.
The other aspect of it, I suppose, the Royal Commission into state-based child abuse and state-based and faith-based care, for the Crown to apologise is one thing. Some other commenters are saying, so where's the church in this? Where are representatives of the faith communities? Where's their apology? Where's their redress? Again, we're still waiting.
Yeah, I've said it to you before, on your show, that the churches have been silent in this, really. They're not announcing, publicly their own apologies. They haven't yet, and I know the government has encouraged them to, and said, Prime Minister said that they will publicly apologise. But I would have thought they would have been first out the gate to apologise, publicly apologise. So this is, again, just a stain on the church that they are not ahead of this, that they're not seeking, to help survivors navigate their trauma, to help survivors get redress, to help survivors have a future.
You would think they'd be the first that would be part of the Christian kaupapa to seek forgiveness, to look for ways of restoration. Of course, coincidentally, happening within that same 24-hour period, the Archbishop of Canterbury, the head of the Anglican Church worldwide, has stepped down as a result of similar allegations and cover-ups in the UK. This isn't, of course, tragically, it's not just a New Zealand issue.
That's right. It's worldwide. And the world has been watching New Zealand to see what we're doing, to see how we are going to respond to the commission and to the inquiry, to see how we're going to help survivors, because this is a worldwide issue. Other countries need help as well and are trying to navigate some of the abuse that's happened in their faith-based and state agencies. So yes, they're looking at us. And so I think that's a good thing, because I think it needs that pressure from overseas as well, to see what can we do to really help navigate this whole area of abuse and prevent it from happening again. No one wants this to happen again. Nobody.
No.
And the government is in a place where they can stop it from happening again.
In some ways, the Archbishop of Canterbury, Justin Welby, stepping down did show some leadership, taking responsibility for this awful thing that has happened, not just in the UK, but internationally. Would that type of thing also help for victims, for survivors in New Zealand as well, for people to not only apologise, but to say, hey, I'm taking responsibility for this, I'm stepping down? Would that at least show some commitment, some sincerity? Is that what you'd like to see in New Zealand?
Yes, most definitely. There are people that have been responsible for hiding, concealing, for making it difficult for survivors to come forward or to make claims or to take legal action. Una Jacozzi was one of those, our Solicitor General, and still she's not stood down, she's not resigned, but she has been a part of ruining a lot of survivors' lives as they've tried to come forward and they've tried to tell the government, to tell others of what's happened to them.
A strong reaction.
So I'm surprised.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, I'm surprised she's still in her role.
Yeah, and a strong response at Parliament. There was audible booing from the crowd when she spoke. I suppose this may follow, but only if voices are listened to, I suppose.
That's right. Who is the government really listening to? You know, when they keep people in those roles, and the same for churches. Who are the churches really listening to if they continue to keep people in their leadership roles when those people have, hidden the truth or not helped survivors? And I do applaud the Archbishop of Canterbury in resigning. I actually think that shows his integrity, that he would resign and take responsibility.
It is, I suppose, a difficult process, but it shouldn't be too difficult. It shouldn't be a contradiction or even a dilemma in people's minds on how to act, whether it be to protect the church or to protect children. This shouldn't be a situation that we find ourselves in, although tragically it's a part of our story here in Aotearoa.
That's right. Isn't it incredible that we wouldn't protect our children or vulnerable adults? It's beggars belief, really, that we would not put the most vulnerable first, and we would not support the most vulnerable first, and that instead we protect an organisation or an agency. You know, that it does reflect, I think, morality that we need to correct in Aotearoa, for sure.
What's the next step, do you think? The apology in some ways is a step. There is a discussion about a Remembrance Day and restitution reparations to follow. What would you like to see as a next step, Frances?
I'd like to see more detail in the redress system. It wasn't clear to me if faith-based survivors are going to be able to use that redress system. We need to be able to be a part of that, and the government needs to make that clear, that it's not just for state-based survivors, but also for faith-based survivors. And I'd also like to see a safe care agency. The government did not refer to any of that, but that was a major part of the Commission's recommendations, that a safe care agency to protect our children and vulnerable adults be set up and put in place.
Yeah.
That's a real concern for me, because Australia has this, and so our children and our vulnerable adults are actually safer in Australia than they are here.
Gosh, yeah. Restoration for the past and seeking forgiveness and apology, but also protection for the future as well. Frances, thank you for the stand that you're taking, for your advocacy in this space. Thank you for taking the time to join us today.
Thank you, Andrew.
Hey, thanks very much for joining us in the Rhema studio. Thanks very much for watching the interview. It's kind of nice to have an audience, actually. And if you did like what you watched, then do give us a like, do give us the thumbs up. And if you'd like to see more interviews like that one, or perhaps even better, subscribe and those interviews will come straight to you. Don't forget to turn on your notifications, and we'll see you in the next one. Cheers.